Hello and welcome. You are watching Music's VaKu, the Diaspora Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Megha Sharma. We bring in people of significance across the entire globe, Indian diaspora being the focus, showcasing their strengths, their successes, and the innovative work that they are doing in various arenas and making our nation proud. First up on the show today is Vikas Khanna. He is a Michelin star chef, a restaurateur, a filmmaker and an author as well, and most of all a humanitarian who has aided millions of Indians over here in India during the time of pandemic, sitting in New York City. Take a look at his story. He is a Michelin star chef, a restaurateur, a filmmaker and a cookbook writer.
It started as a promise to my mom, and who said something very important to me. She's saying, all what you have earned in your life is a subtotal of the entire country.
But most of all, he is a humanitarian aiding millions of Indians during the pandemic from New York City.
When people will receive the food and they'll send me, the team will say that, chef, it was a successful event. I think I cried the most when we got the food in the trains, which were going from Delhi and they were dispatching all over India.
Music's proudly presents the VaKu Diaspora Dialogue with Vikas Khanna. Well, hello and welcome. You're watching Music's VaKu. Joining me on the broadcast is Vikas Khanna. He's one of the first Indian chefs to have been awarded a Michelin star in the United States. He has written 35 books and more. In fact, he's in the midst of writing one. Even as he was speaking with me, he's directed a film. He's cooked for the Obamas. He's hosted MasterChef India. He started a food distribution drive amid the coronavirus 19 pandemic, all the way from New York. A filmmaker, an author, while he's also this fantastic restaurateur and a chef. And the biggest of all credential for him being that he's such a humanitarian. It's great to have you, Vikas, on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Megan.
I'm going to start off with the latest instance that has happened in 2020, the pandemic. It has really, really bad. India especially was suffering in the second wave. And the entire initiative that started off in your brain in New York City to feed the maximum number of Indians, that the underprivileged, the ones who are needing help, and that's how you went about going it. If you could share that particular instance, that idea that came about, and how did you mobilize so many people, so many resources, so many institutions to feed those, I think 50 million Indians were fed through your Feed India initiative?
We crossed 54 or 50, a little bit less than 55. But it started as a promise to my mom, and who said something very important to me. She's saying, all what you have earned in your life is a subtotal of the entire country. So when we need you, we can't have your back towards us. And I was very skeptical because, I was in New York and time zone difference, resources, India was under lockdown. We couldn't hardly reach out people, It was such a difficult time. And she said that this is the time when we need you for the first time. And that really, I still feel the gravity of that moment of the call with her. Then she said, this is the first time your mother needs you like this. And I said, Mom, I fail, I succeed, I'm not going to give up. And we continued working. We built up an entire team in New York, and subsequently we had to build up teams in India. Because we had to do teams in different cities, and we had to create centers. So everything had to be done overnight. People we could trust, people we could align ourselves, and the tribe had to be built on that magnitude. Now, of course, challenges are important, but there were heartbreaking moments when food reached the people. That was when I would break down. It will be 7 o'clock in the morning in New York, and I'll be like a little baby. I'll be like, oh, I kept the promise, So every single day was a roller coaster ride for me, and it took a toll on everything I was doing. But one good thing was that, we have a team who also keeps realigning the moral compass. And they said, every other project can wait. Feeding people at this time can't wait. So there were some of the projects which I'm the most proud of that were the ones we did the gas stations on the highways were turned into food stations. It required a different level of logistics to be understood. It was running almost like 10 Michelin stars at the same time, and that also in different countries. the pressure was too much. But what kept me going was that when people will receive the food and they'll send me, the team will say that, chef, it was a successful event. I think I cried the most when we got the food in the trains, which were going from Delhi and they were dispatching all over India. Mm-hmm. That is when I think that night, or that morning in New York, I cried like a baby. I'm like, because I saw the trains and, we were all reading about what's happening in these trains who were taking migrant workers back to their towns. And, it was hot, it was crazy. And it was like there were no proper stations assigned to stop. But all the station people came together when they saw our teams, and we hired people on ground making puris and pickles and kelas and, water or slippers. That day was very, very, very emotional for me. When even they were not much, we only fed, in that single day we fed 16 trains, 1/6. But that day I felt, oh my God, it was because we had worked for so many months. We had the structure to put this operation together just in a few hours. Mm-hmm. And that was...
Because you are an emotion man, and if you take a look at your Twitter feeds, if you take a look at your Instagram feeds, there's a picture of you feeding your grandmother. There are a number of times your mother also appears on your feeds, and you really love her, and you love the intrinsic part of India and Amritsar that you come from, and that's very reflective in your food as well. Talk to us about your entire journey as a little boy who dreamt of opening up a restaurant and was very frugal in its resources and enterprising as well, and then traveling all the way to New York, earning that Michelin star, having restaurants, working for the topmost restaurants across the world, and then now becoming a restaurateur. You're an author. There's a documentary that you've done. I remember the Golden Temple, where you've done seva, and it was all reflective of who you are as an individual. And that's commendable. And it's also overwhelming to have an Indian sitting over there in New York and making our entire Indian community very, very proud.
Oh, thank you. This means a lot. I think it is impossible until it is done. That's the theme of the new documentary, The Barefoot Empress. It seems always impossible until it's done. And, when we started working in different restaurants or countries, or, I left India in 2000, like physically. And I feel that, there was still so much of prejudice against being an Indian in restaurants when you applied for jobs, because we couldn't figure out what's the difference between a Michelin star chef and a chef. We've always thought that it's like an Oscar-winning filmmaker and a filmmaker, right? The world has certain awards and recognitions and certain medals. We are watching the Olympics right now, and these medals are confirmation of the global stage. And the global stage for food industry is just the Michelin star. And when we will apply for these restaurants for jobs, and they will not accept us, and they'll always say that looking at your background, I'm a graduate, one of the toppers in my college, have worked through most of the hotel chains in India. All my life I've been cooking, and they'll say, oh, we can put you as a helper or a storekeeper or a cleaner or a delivery boy. Mm-hmm. And that would always be crushing me, because we did not have. And sometimes I'll accept the jobs because I said, I'll still be around their kitchens and see their operations, because I was saying, I'm not taking this job. I'm trying to observe the subtotal of decades of your hierarchy, how you built it, especially in French restaurants. That was a very tough thing for me, very tough thing. And, you go back to square one and you start working again as dishwashers and started observing new things, and you felt gratified because you felt that you don't want to stop this. You want to take what they've done to French cuisine or to Japanese food or even to American and European cuisines, many of them, that how they elevated them in a different way to present it in this global format of Michelin stars. It was a very tough challenge, but it was impossible. And I think Vineet Bhatia winning a Michelin was also, and by the way, I was not the first Michelin star. It was Vineet Bhatia. I was one of the first in America. Before me, it was Suvir Saran.
Okay.
And, we have to respect that people who did it the first. And, I was still building up the space. And when Vineet won the Michelin star in London, that is when my whole concept changed. I would disagree with people telling me that your food is not enough to win a Michelin star. And I'll always punched them with Vineet's name and said, he did it in London, I'm going to do this in New York. Oh, but New York doesn't have any love for Indian food. I said, it just takes one person to start dreaming, and then everybody starts feeling that's normalized.
And before I let you go, because you're a dreamer, you're an achiever, you have so much energy, so much motivation, and the concentration levels are just there. So you just go on from one project to another, and congratulations to you, all the very best to you as well. What is the one message that you would like to give to Indians living over here in India and across the world, coming from somebody who has so much pride and prestige, coming from India and making such a name for himself?
I think it was all a collective effort, but I always feel that we have to come together as a community. We have to, you see my Twitter, the moment I see somebody winning something, we got to all applause for it. But we also got to applause for people who are falling and trying again. They need more of our appreciation, and you can see in most of my feeds I keep talking about that. And as a country, as people who are living in diaspora, so many of us, we need to fight for inclusivity. We pushed way too behind because we don't have sometimes support of each other. So I see that when we have a voice, we got to use it, and we use it as a collective force, and that's all that's required for all of us to rise together.
Absolutely. With that message, Vikas, thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast. I wish you all the very best to achieve newer goals, set your eyes higher, and make our country proud. Thank you so much for joining me on.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, next up is Ninad Nayak. He is the head of product and business at Alexa Amazon in London. He's a pass out from the University of Michigan College of Engineering and Columbia Business School. Here's his story. He is the head of product and business at Alexa Amazon in London.
I picked mechanical engineering because I wanted to build cars. It so happened that when I actually started taking those courses, I hated them.
He's a pass out from the University of Michigan College of Engineering and Columbia Business School.
I think that there is a strong and deep bench strength of Indian leaders that can make an impact on the world.
NewsX proudly presents the VaKu Diaspora Dialogue with Ninad Nayak. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX VaKu. My name is Megha Sharma. Joining me on the broadcast is Ninad Nayak. Now, he is living in London. He's a lead product manager for Alex Connecticut. He has passed out from the University of Michigan College of Engineering and went on to do his MBA from Columbia Business School. It's good to have you, Ninad, with such diverse background, and gone ahead and traveled all the way from India in Gujarat to London at this point of time. How have things worked out for you?
Life's been good. It's been a pretty diverse experience, bit of a meandering journey. Lived about 18 years now outside of India, across Brazil, the US, and the UK. Excited to speak with you today. Thanks for having me.
So how have your experiences been different vis-a-vis living in India and then Brazil, and you talk about United States, and finally in London?
Mm-hmm. It's been a pretty interesting set of experiences. For the most part, not quite unnerving, because the thing that stands out about India is the fact that, we are a democracy and culturally very similar to both the UK and the US. Brazil was very challenging because it's a different language. I didn't have a lot of time to, learn Portuguese, but I still studied at the American School of Sao Paulo. And so life wasn't very difficult. It has been pretty interesting in terms of, being able to assimilate different cultural aspects. One experience that always stands out to me is, in India, we're born and brought up in an atmosphere of very high competition. Brazil is the 180-degree opposite of that, where things are very laid back. People are a lot more calm, a lot more accepting of challenges in life. And so it's led me to, have a set of experiences and a set of character traits that I think bring the best of both worlds together.
Interesting. And amongst all the countries that you have lived in, including India, which one would you prefer the most?
It depends on what aspect of life, right? From a cultural, societal, and familial aspect, obviously India. From a professional aspect, I think the West still is a little bit better for folks like me who work in technology. We're able to just get more work done, just high leverage work in the West. That's changing now. Post-COVID, I think we're seeing more decentralization, more remote work. But today, where I stand, I think, from a professional aspect, it's still the West.
Okay, talk to me about your profession, your career at this point of time. Was it a conscious decision to go ahead and decide and do an MBA from Columbia Business School, go ahead and study engineering from the University of Michigan, obviously the topmost colleges, and that's important as well. But a conscious shift, notwithstanding, to move from India and then travel to all these places. How have these experiences built you?
Absolutely. I describe my life as a series of experiments. And really, at any given point of time, you're taking the decision that seems right at that moment, right? And life never really works out the way you plan it to be. When I was in high school growing up, I was a big fan of cars. I was a big fan of racing, huge Michael Schumacher fan. And so when time came to enroll in college, I picked mechanical engineering because I wanted to build cars. It so happened that when I actually started taking those courses, I hated them. And most of my friends were in the business school. So leaving college, I ended up in management consulting and got to learn a whole number of things about a host of industries, everything from nuclear, solar, telecom, tech, and what have you. It was very, very interesting and very educational, but what it was not was fulfilling. And so that was my first career pivot, where I decided that, from a longer term perspective, as I reflect upon what I want to do 20, 30 years out, the thing I really care about is building. And that for me means being on the frontier, being in technology. And so I began that pivot doing my MBA first at Columbia and then joining Amazon. More recently, I've taken a couple of pivots as well, experimenting with different domains within Alexa. I've done Alexa AI, working in the Internet of Things space right now. I expect that life will continue to be a series of experiments going forward as well.
Okay, what are those, strong pillars? Because when I've gone ahead and studied how this entire networking build up that is the reason and the cause for going ahead and holding those sort of decisions that come out from the current dispensation, be the Biden administration or the Trump administration. And I'm assuming something similar happens when it comes to the dispensation that functions in London as well. Is the backbones of it are the IITs, the Doctors Diaspora, I'm talking about RP, and then there is the pop culture or the soft power that India has, and then also academics and think tanks. How can we go ahead and further leverage these pillars to ensure for a collaborative effort for putting the perspective, the views, the ethos of India and Indians on a larger scale to the global arena?
Absolutely, right. I would think of that as twofold. There's the politics and the preaching, which is sort of like the overt and the covert way of doing this, right? On the political front, I think we do a much better job of this in the UK, not so great in the US, which is how do we, Indians are generally one of the wealthiest minorities in whichever nation we're in. How do we lean into that wealth and that power more? How do we, identify, groom, and help elect politicians who are more sympathetic or more aligned with, what India stands for? That's on the more overt side of things. And the more, not want to say covert, but not very overt side of things is how do we use our soft power to actually, make the general population aware of what India stands for, which is very highly aligned with what the West stands for. Now is a very critical time because you're seeing, a realignment of geopolitics. You're seeing, China has been, positioning itself as taking away more share of the pie. What we should be doing is saying, hey guys, we're here to help you actually grow the pie so we can all get wealthy together, right? Let us build the technological backbone for the future that you want. And so we have a unique opportunity right now. We have enough people in positions of influence that this diaspora should be, trying to market India in a more positive light.
Absolutely. I think you have some interesting points over there. And that's exactly what the motto of NewsX VaKu is, to build one big family of the Indian diaspora and spread the right message about India, the Indian community, and what we exactly stand for, because there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation that also gets spread, unfortunately, because of the kind of contrasting lobbies that are at play from our enemy states, from countries that do not think in alignment with India or India's interests. But thank you so much, Ninad, for joining us on this very special broadcast. Here's hoping to having you on our broadcast more often.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
All right, and next up is Shekhar Iyer, who is the Director of Advertising and Sales at Khaleej Times. He helms the United Arab Emirates' largest selling English daily. Take a look at his story. He is the Director of Advertising and Sales at Khaleej Times.
I have been working only in media, and that through only Indian channels or newspaper.
He helms the United Arab Emirates' largest selling English daily.
Being an Indian, you are never differentiated. You would never feel out of place. That's the best part about this country.
NewsX proudly presents the VaKu Diaspora Dialogue with Shekhar Iyer. Hello and welcome. My name is Megha Sharma. You're watching VaKu, and joining me on the broadcast is a special guest. His name is Shekhar Iyer. He's currently Director, Advertising and Sales at Khaleej Times in Dubai, and his career spans about 23 years in the media industry, print as well as broadcast and radio, living in Dubai. So that's an interesting set of companies that you've worked for, and I would go ahead because they're all Indian. But you are based out of Dubai, and how have things panned out for you? It's good to have you on the show, Shekhar.
Hi, Megha. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be on NewsX. Heard a lot about NewsX, and, we get the pirated version as of now. So we do watch. In fact, this afternoon I was watching NewsX and the political drama that has rolled out with whatever is happening in India. So pleasure is all mine to talk to you. Let's kick it off.
Absolutely. My first question to you, how did you go about going ahead and building your career in Dubai? 23 years, not a short span of time. And how have you gone ahead and flourished and built a career in media particularly?
It's actually purely accidental. A friend of mine was going for an interview in '99. I still remember it was at Taj, Bombay. And he said, I'm going for an interview. Would you like to join? So I said, I'm not doing anything. Let me come along. So I spent some time at the coffee shop, and then he said they would like to meet you. And I landed up getting the job, and he did not. And, we still joke about it even today. So that was the time when I joined a rep company, and I was repping Times of India Group based out of Dubai. So that's how it all started. And one after the other, after Times, I joined Z, of course. And then from Z, I joined NDTV. And then moving on, I did a small stint with Valuable Group to launch IPL in theaters in Dubai. And then moving on, I joined Mirchi. And Mirchi was my last stint. And currently, I'm with Khaleej Times, the leading newspaper in UAE.
Wow. Now, that's been quite the plethora of companies that you've gone ahead and heralded, and they've all been Indian.
Yes. Surprisingly, it is. We generally joke around here saying that I have been working only in media, and that through only Indian channels or newspaper or other medias, and even the video on demand service from Valuable Group was again Indian. IPL again, the first biggest show which happened in cinemas was IPL here. So all in all, a lot of Indian, and being an Indian, you tend to be so close to what is happening in India.
Yes. And
it is just 2 hours away. You could be in Calcutta and it would take longer to reach Bombay. From Dubai, it would be much easier probably.
So are there challenges that you witnessed, especially in the beginning years, keeping in mind the Indian set of values and ethos and how the work ethic over here domestically versus what it was in Dubai?
Frankly, there is nothing at all. It's a much better, cleaner part of India. If you ever come to Dubai, you'll have to search for others. 60% of the population are from South Asia, so everyone would look similar. Yes, better cars to drive, better roads to drive. That's the only differentiation. Food is the same. Our cultural sensibilities are the same. And if you want to compare what is happening in India vis-a-vis UAE, it more or less, we mimic whatever is happening in India, to be frank with you. But more liberal, you tend to have a better life. And I strongly feel that anybody who's living in Dubai for the last 20 years odd would always be the ambassador of UAE, ambassador of Dubai, and he would always talk highly about Dubai. And that is what Dubai brings, all these positive factors. And you tend to take things more, personally when it comes to anybody talking about Dubai. And the other thing is that being an Indian, you are never differentiated. Yeah. You would never feel out of place. That's the best part about this country.
And finally, before I let you go, Shekhar, a message to the Indians who are living over there and watching you as part of the Indian diaspora, as part of the Indian community who is living overseas and doing fantastic work and giving a good name to India and Indians. What is that one message that you would want to give to us all?
I would just say, like VaKu, why Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, there is a newness in Indian today, and that is embracing. We have always embraced newness. We are there in technology, and at the same time, we are going to lead. We are the leaders. So, that confidence part was missing probably 10 years back, but, today's younger generation have got much more to give today to the world. And, most of the people we Indians who are economic migrants moving outside the country and, trying to still hold the flag high, one needs to know that, you need to give back to the country.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shekhar Iyer, for joining me on this very special telecast of VaKu. I wish you all the best and looking forward to having you more often times on our channel.
Thank you. Thank you, Megha. Thank you so much.
NewsX ITV network have proudly launched the VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network.
VaKu DBN will be India's first mainstream platform dedicated to the diaspora community. Help support us. Become VaKu patrons at memboro.com/VaKu. You will get the first access to our interviews, make recommendations, merchandise access, ask questions, and get a shout out of thanks on our TV shows.
You can also suggest to us who should get the VaKu Golden Chakra Awards and also tell us who should get into the VaKu Hall of Fame. Limited memberships are available at 100 rupees per month on Memboro VaKu.
Sign up now. Log on to memboro.com/VaKu.